value. But since we had this introduction vis-à-vis digital transformation, and this is where we're moving to.
With Mr. Theofanis Tasis, who has joined us, and I would like to ask him to the floor. He is Professor of, just hold on, because I need to give your whole title in honorific, because you're so many things. You're a philosopher, Professor of Contemporary Practical Philosophy, Alpen-Adria University of Austria and St. Gallen University of Switzerland, practice political, social and ethical. Professor Tasis. Right, so how was Italy? Well, Napoli is even more intense, more ruckusome than Athens, and the airport is infinitely more dysfunctional than ours, which is why my flight delayed. So I came straight from the airport. Just a second, you're talking about an airport. We have Pakis Papadimitriou here. Kudos for the Athens International Airport, as compared to that of Napoli, of course. So are we ahead, Mr. Tasis? I mean, let's start with digital transformation. Did we make the steps that, well, let's compare ourselves to the Italians. To what extent have they managed to make steps forward in terms of transformation? Well, not just Italy, and I mean Germany, as far as vaccines are concerned, did manage to schedule them using a unified platform for all the citizens the way we did in Greece. I mean, we should have, in this constant feeling of insecurity that appears to characterize us as a people in Greece, we should also add some pride for the acquis, for what we conquered over the past few years. The previous speaker talked about the narrative of education in a very eloquent way, who said that we are taught history as a succession of decadences. We could also see Greek history as a success of successes that follow periods of success and decadence. As to the things that she mentioned earlier, and she was very polite and very generous to include me, I really don't perceive me that way. I perceive me, with reference to the past, as a part of a relay race. There's a language that's being spoken here for 3,000 years, and this language bears some values. Some of us try a bit more than the rest, possibly, to take care of this language and the values it carries, so as to pass on the torch to the next. Because only if you know where you're coming from, you may know where you want to go to. If you don't know your roots, you don't know where you're headed to. Right, well, as concerns digital transformation that we have coined as a term, let's talk about technological evolution. That we have new challenges and new issues. One of them is digital illiteracy. It has to do with all those fellow citizens of ours that, well, be it for age reasons or for other reasons, cannot adapt the way this time and place dictates. What can we do with those people? Well, digital illiteracy obviously has to do with people of a certain age that do not possess a certain set of skills, basic skills. But it's not a static thing, because we ourselves, who believe that have some sufficient digital skills, in 5, 10 or 15 years, we may no longer have them. We may no longer be modern or contemporary, if you take into consideration how fast techno-science evolves. Digital illiteracy is linked to an overall digital inequality that has to do with social castes, social strata that have many more rather, social and digital skills than others. At the level of states and countries, one may also ascertain this inequality. There's a different set of digital skills of Finland or South Korea, and a different set of digital skills in Senegal. The issue here is that we need to comprehend that we are at a time that is radically different than the previous one. I call it iconistic. What does that mean? It means that through digitalization, services, goods, our own self are turned into images, so it's imagistic. So we have a hybrid person. Is it a meta era? No, I wouldn't call it a meta, because there is a pro-meta and a meta-meta. I will call it imagistic or iconistic or figurative. We are in the here and now, but we are also digital images of ourselves. And I hope some of you, I hope not many, because you do not look at your screens or your phones. Some of you may scroll, may have your communication, and you experience, and we experience our presence here at the here and now, the physical presence, but also digitally. So this way of existing has not existed in human history so far. It creates a social reality that is unprecedented. The world did not change that much in the Industrial Revolution when we had cars and machines and everything. The world becomes different in the way we understand it as a space and as a time. It is really a new condition in which we need to accept that there is no way back. There is no return. This condition will accelerate even further. Well, this condition is based on these platforms, the social networks, isn't it? You can't limit something in space or in time, because it is something that is happening incessantly. It happens all the time. So could it be that a new gap is created in this environment? Because, well, some cannot follow, some follow and some lag behind. There is a new gap, but again, on different levels. There's a gap at the level of people. Some people have more digital skills and better capacities to, well, direct their life in social media, which results in them increasing their visibility. When one increases one's visibility, they increase the social, cultural capital they have. Some other people have relatively more limited capabilities to do so, which creates an incessant attempt to have more visibility. Those who are more visible draw more attention, and those who draw more attention increase their social, financial, cultural capital. This competition, however, does not always lead upwards. This competition may also lead downwards in the sense of a homogenization. In order to enlarge and increase your visibility, draw the attention of others, what must you do is present a digital image of yourself that is the more charming possible. Rounded, without any spikes or anything? Yes, but smoothed. But a person who is driving as a taxi driver in the countryside, or someone who owns a small business in a very small town, their own images and the snapshots of their daily lives as compared to the snapshots of an actor or a musician or an IT programmer are not as charming. One may upload visits to gourmet restaurants, visits to foreign countries, activities that are more unusual. And in this way they may increase their visibility as compared to the second one. So we need to present our lives that appear unique, and to present them as unique, and then we have an inequality in the form of a gap between what we actually are as physical beings and the digital image of ourselves as a result of our editing or directing of our lives. So we are the curators of an exhibition that is our lives. And it is a burden, because when you see your image on social media, you have two options. You either recognize that it's not who you really are, and it is a projection, an idealization that is necessary, fake it if you make it, or you deny it. But if you deny it, you accumulate a tension, a stress, in terms of conflicts, because what you edit and you direct, in essence, does not create, does not exist. How does one manage it, is the question on behalf of the moderator, because what you say leads to misery, extreme misery. Of course it leads to misery. It leads to a form of misery even to those who are considered as advantageous or privileged, those who have high social capital or cultural capital. So over the past few months, I observed that there are various famous people or recognizable people on social media who will say that they will leave Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, or wherever. This is one way. Another way could be for us to turn again, as Greeks, to our tradition, and to recreate, explain ourselves. In philosophy, in ancient times, we had the know thyself. Why should I know myself? Because I need to be able to care for myself. And caring for myself had to do with caring about one's mind, one's soul, and one's body. So they had to care for their body, care for themselves, and there they became virtuous and they became good people, contributing to what's best for the city. Today, this caring would have to do with caring for one's digital image. What could that mean? Well, why do I post what I post? When do I do that, and what do I expect? Well, there's the distance between what I am and what I wished to be. Why I would wish for people to see me the way I wish people to see me. Some key questions. What happens to my data that is accumulated during this editing of my self-image? How do I appear in the framework of a general condition? What sort of society is it that creates these visibility competitions that I try to excel in? These are key ingredients of a digital care for oneself. If it started through education, and many children are self-taught, as we are in those skills. And it would be very fertile to have this in education. And when I say that they're self-taught, that in the decades, the 60s and the 70s, one being able to stand in front of a camera and present oneself was characteristic of just the movie stars. Brigitte Bardot, Sophia Loren. I mean, an 18-year-old from Florida or a 12-year-old boy from Igoumenitsa have similar capacities of self-editing and self-directing. They have taught themselves without being taught that. All it takes is a camera, which is a mobile phone, and nothing. Yes, without a cast, without a crew, without directors. What these children learn to do is to create a self-care of their digital thing. They self-protect. Some more, some less. They experience this tension we have between the idealized picture they project and their physical presence. Right, okay. Let's go back to what you mentioned earlier, to this imagistic or figurative society. And here we have a question: what are the limits of this iconistic or imagistic? Because, well, everything happens online, and we don't have something to remind us what our lives used to be. What will be the evolution of that? Well, what our lives used to be... Well, have you noticed that recently the majority of advertisements have a lot of nostalgia? The cafe, the old village, mother's pies, references to Greece in past decades. Why does that happen? Is because nostalgia is a very potent drug. It works as a sedative in our stress for the future. It delays constant reality. The lack of an end, or where these things will balance out, or where we will reach a plateau, where the rhythms of our day-to-day life is to see, yes, okay, it's the 90s. I mean, if you take a look at YouTube videos, you will see how slowly things were in the 90s. People stood, they had a drink, or sit at cafe for hours. So the lack of such a plateau, if you'd like, increases our stress. And the plateau with such a deceleration will never exist again. We can claim the deceleration of our individual lives, but in the short term, I can't see how we could decelerate society as a whole. Social time will accelerate because the technological scientific evolution is accelerated. The future is already here. It is unevenly distributed. Not all of us have the same access to the future. Some do. I mean, if you live in the Silicon Valley and you're a senior official of Facebook, have a higher access, and others have lower access of the future. If someone is a postman in Komotini. But this future, to which few people have access, will be the future of the others very shortly. And to the extent that I am monitoring and studying this future, it is even faster than the future we're experiencing now. Which is why many people say that, well, in order for us to meet the requirements and the needs of this imagistic condition, we should probably upgrade ourselves. a very influential thing, the superhumanism, is that without improving our intellectual and emotional capabilities, we will not be able to carry this burden of a fast, rapid exchange of information and imaging of everything. So we need to reset and upgrade. Well, you see already, everyday lives, when we're talking about ourselves, we're talking on computer terms. I mean, when persons understand themselves, they understand themselves via animals or machines. You say you're a beast when you're doing something very well, or you're a machine when you're doing something very well. What do these things have in common? That we underestimate humans as humans. It's something that Sophocles said, is that there is nothing more scary and more great than man. So we reduce our humaneness and we elevate machines as a standard. And in the past, the beast as a standard, as a model, which is very dangerous. We are infinitely more beautiful and better than any AI program. Right, great. Okay, let's move on to another risk, which is also a sign of the times, because those of us with a Twitter or an Instagram account, well, not so much Instagram, but Facebook as well, you can see a lot of hate, a lot of toxicity, a lot of controversy, a lot of, well, people wake up and sleep only in order to confront and contradict someone else. How could we manage all these networks? Because we see hate overflowing our computers, our tablets, our mobile phones. Well, first of all, why does that happen? Well, in my opinion, it happens for two reasons. One of the reasons is that as we feel and live ourselves as our images, our digital images, there is a need to express our corporality and how we feel our body through our feelings. So when you're sitting before a keyboard or a screen and you interact as an image, you're not there, corporeal, in order to balance this imagization, you feel your body more and you increase your mental and your soul temperature. And the negative feelings are more intense and more easy to surface than positive ones, although in reality feelings are both at the same time, always at the same time, positive and negative regarding the spectrum that we leave them. I mean, they're at the time positive and negative, but in order to feel their corporality, they vent emotions, they express their emotions on the internet. This is one of the reasons why I believe what you described happens. The second reason is that in this visibility competition that I described earlier, the less visible, in their attempt to become visible, the only way they have at their disposal to do that is to express the more emotion possible, which will make them more unique. Why? Because higher social and cultural capitals do not express that much emotion. They're more cool. So those who are marginalized in the fringe, by expressing their negative emotions, manage two things. First of all, they balance these contradictions within them, this exclusion feeling, and at the same time, because there is this emotional charge of their digital image, they draw attention. So, I apologize for interrupting you, but like Mrs. Mariakaki said earlier, is it the time of the bulldogs or the pit bulls, or will the bulldogs take the spotlight and they're the ones who bark and make noise, and what we do is just follow what they do? Well, it's a time when we claim visibility requires much more expression of emotions and feelings. It's a time when democracy will become themocracy, for the two reasons that I mentioned. So these groups that people in groups that try to express their feelings in this way are the least visible ones, or they are invisible. And populism, what it does is it preys on this indignation. It is the idol of the invisible. Trump, Orban, all those people are nothing more. Meloni, if you'd like. Yes, Meloni, thank you. They are the collective digital projections of the invisible ones, who now take their revenge and manage to appear in the global sphere, empowered through the form of a superego. So in conclusion, this is the biggest challenge, isn't it? All those people who have either lagged behind or they're feeling like they're lagging behind are the ones who tomorrow will just cast their ballot in the box, and they will elect no matter whom, as compared to what most people think. And then we will move from populism to populism, don't we, Professor? Well, one of the many reasons, and there are too many reasons and too little time, one of the reasons why this happens is that the liberal democracy over the past decades became, and this may sound like a paradox or a conundrum for Greek things that happen in the rest of the West, much more a compromise. Democracy was focused on in the middle, and this way it did not have any difference. And there is a strong confrontation in democracy, but if this is not expressed because political correctness has prevailed, because a strong center has prevailed, as a reaction the extremes will become stronger. So a democracy that lives up to its name would be a democracy that seeks out compromise without excluding confrontation, to see flaming, burning issues, to express those who are invisible and not allow them to express themselves through the extremes. And this is what the democracy needs to do in this decade. And this is the big challenge we have ahead. Thank you so very much. Thank you, sir. Thank you, one and all.